I'm a massive Tom York fan. And I know for Kid A and some of his solo stuff, he literally will write words that he likes down, put them in a top hat, and then I don't know if it's a top hat. I think I just made that up. Just put it in a hat, and then we'll rip out words at random and then mix them into songs. And then he goes a bit more crazy, and then he'll start circling the room and sampling his own vocals. That's a bit full on, but that's that kind of idea. But I do like that idea of. I think that's where a good record will come from, if you have a collection of imagery, and you pull from that, and it doesn't kind of matter which song it ends up in, because it's kind of like a bit of glue that lyrically holds an album together. Yeah. And so that's a good thing about that technique, because it'd be a bit weird if you have. I don't know. I find it weird if you have albums where it's got these like really soulful, like personal and sentimental songs, and then on top of that you throw this outrageously politically left song. Sure. It's like what? Like where did that transition happen there with a record anyway?
Yeah, so it kind of sounds like you approach songwriting, particularly now with the project that you're working on now, from a project point of view. So has that always kind of been the case, where you kind of like, okay, well, this is the vibe I'm feeling right now for a collection of this could actually work really well for an album or an EP or whatever, and then do you just kind of just draw from that vibe continually? Is that kind of what you do?
I tried it, but like I said, like if I wish I could sit down and plan out a whole record start to finish. And go, it's going to start like this and finish like this, and it's going to be have this awesome middle section of like soundscapes. But I mean, the reality is, with like any ideas in any art process for any media, it's kind of like, it always ends up being different than I thought it was going to be. And then I think where the kind of good stuff happens is when you start making, and then it does start changing. You start making those on the spur decisions, which kind of make this final, and I think. But I do, like we do, and the band in general, I think we think of records like old school records, like we think we want people to walk away and go, that Violent Soho, that whole record is good. Because there's something that's happened in the last 10 or 20 years where when we went from vinyl to digital, and it's like it went from listening around and listening to a whole record, and then it jumped onto just releasing singles and EPs. And I know, I think it's like just the music fans in us, we like whole records. And the whole record should be good start to finish, and it should be, you could put some vinyl on and go start to finish, and it's like you don't leave the couch.
Yeah, cool. I mean, let's talk about Hungry Ghost as an example. I mean, where did that concept come from as an entire album? Was that kind of born at the beginning, and then kind of the songs were born out of that, or did you come up with like a few key songs and then kind of realize a theme that was connecting them, and work from that?
With Hungry Ghosts, it was, it was more the second one you said. Yeah. It was this, songs like is weird, because when I think about the singles off the record, they actually were written the longest time ago. So like Sarah Mona said, was written really early on from when we got back from the States, and then Covered in Chrome, and then some others in the middle, and then Dope Calypso. The opening track was written one of the last songs, and Lowbrow. Like the first two songs were written like last. And it was, and even the title name and the artwork, I remember thinking it's like the last idea I even had for the whole record in terms of music or art. It was the last idea I had. I had all these other bits of artwork laid out, other names for the album.
What were some of those? What was the first with for that album?
There was Lowbrow. I actually had the name Lowbrow hanging around for like 2 years. I just loved that name. I just thought it said something about. I mean, like, you think about where the term comes from. You got like highbrow art, and then you got lowbrow art, and I think there's just something that's really connects the dots there with garage, punk, rock, whatever. Like, really, it's lowbrow art, right? Really, it's something, but it still says something. It still should be analysed. And if you look lowbrow art up, it's actually, I think I remember read something where lowbrow art it's not highbrow, or the establishment kind of turns it away from it because it's not analysed academically. I just thought that was such an interesting concept, that a pile of bricks or a canvas with one colour will be analysed academically, but not something that comes from the street. That's not worth it. always thought, and that kind of human framework to put around things. So yeah, I really liked. I remember even I threw the name low about Johan, and we were umming and ahhing, and then Hungry Ghost kind of the last track. I was looking for a name for that track. It was already recorded, and then Hungry Ghost popped up, and then I got that idea from this book called Culture Jam, and that was. It felt like I'd read this phrase which actually defined the whole record and what I was trying to find the meaning of in a lot of songs. Sure. And then just kind of popped, and I was like, okay, let's put a few ideas to the bed, threw ideas around, but Hungry Ghost just instantly won out, And all you have to do is find some awesome artist who does rad skulls online, which is what we did. and then email her and go, hey, can you just do a rad skull? She's like, yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, cool. You mentioned that the first 2 tracks were ones that came towards the end of the writing process for that record. Was that kind of because, why do you feel that happened in that process? Was that more so like, okay, you've created all these tracks for the record, and you're like, hang on, maybe we're missing, tracks of this particular vibe, or there's nothing here that kind of sets up the record yet? Is that where that was kind of born from, or?
It wasn't. No, it wasn't. The track order wasn't even completed until everything was recorded. So, not really. Like it wasn't. But I do think if you look back on the process, it kind of makes sense if you go, all these other tracks that are written, and then there's these these last 2 tracks actually go right up front because they kind of are such a good introduction to the whole album. It makes sense that it's kind of like if you're writing an essay or something and you write the introduction last because you actually know what you said now. Yeah. So you actually know what. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. You mentioned before how when you're jamming with your guitar riffs and sometimes you kind of start from influences and other bands and their styles, and then you kind of run off that and go into your own kind of thing. What are some of the most your favorite bands that have kind of influenced you and your songwriting style?
There's the first bands that come to mind. Bands like Pavement, which is more, your old American North, or they lived all over the country, didn't they? But Pavement's the one band where I think it's that culmination of like, not only do I like the guitars and the whole slack attitude, but it's the lyrics as well. I think the lyrics, you see Malcolm, it's just really smart lyrics. There's a song. It's when you find an artist and it's kind of like, wow, that's so good. I don't know how you can even write that good, and I don't even know how I could ever write that good. That's when you got like a favorite. So that's one band I think of. Really, I always kind of draw back to. But does it sound like Pavement? Is it as good as Pavement? Yeah. And there's a song I'm trying to think. I think it's called Here, and there's another song off Crooked Rain, but there's a song called Here. He talks about his father, and then there's I could go on heaps of examples, but that's one band where I think maybe Violent Soul is probably a bit more heavy and aggressive than that, obviously, but some of the softer stuff's definitely and lyrically, that to me is the bar, the standard to reach, and to me they're like it's kind of like it's like they came at this time as like Nirvana, but at the same time, Kurt Cobain obviously had these really dark and from the aesthetics of Nirvana, which I kind of don't like. It's kind of like this, all the grotesque stuff, and I just kind of think, it's just something I relate to, and I'm not a heroin addict either, so it's just that's part of Pavement I like. It's like this other version of Nirvana where they're it's completely, some of these lyrics are really dorky, and it's just it's the guitars are so well layered and so well thought out, but at the same time they completely don't give a crap about anything. But they're really smart guys. So it's this weird mishmash, and So I think Pavement's a big influence, but trying to go into some others. There's obviously like the bands that I'll go back to my brothers again. Like I grew up when I started songwriting on Jeff Buckley and Radiohead, Nirvana, Smashing Pumpkins. But obviously a lot of people cite those bands as influences for us, and it's true. But I think when I think like the question I often think about in my own head is like, why in an age where electronic music is kind of the new thing, really, like, and people are doing amazing things in that whole range of music, and then rock. It's weird. It's like rock music, garage. It kind of feels like it's done, but for some reason, Violent Soho, we keep making music with guitars. And I think it's because there's just these awesome. That I just still feel like it's not done, and it can still be done so well. And there is a way where you can throw a garage song, punk song up against something new, and it still sounds fresh and amazing. And there's bands. Tiswell threw me one band just last tour called Autolux from California, and they're just absolutely amazing. Layered guitars, and it's amazing. It's all guitars, it's still guitar pedals, but it still sounds completely new and fresh and reinvented. And so I'd like to think Violent Soho kind of attests to that. So there's just been a whole range of influences, and it's just so much cool stuff. Like, you know, you get your old straight up, you know, like the Shrine, the Bronx, like there's, you know, the late 80s stuff, Replacements, Dinosaur Jr., Sonic Youth, those bands were obviously have all, and another band which I will, so I just have to mention Built to Spill, because we got to tour with that band for 3 weeks in America, and I feel like they kind of set the bar. Pavement set the band lyrically and musicality as what I think is the highest of high standards. I think Built to Spill also not only reached that bar, but as human beings, they're just amazing people. They're the type of band that we want to be. It's like these guys are, you know, they have families, they're touring the States continually, and they're just playing these college towns, and they just write the most amazing music, and it's uncompromising. And on top of that, you know, every second night they were just giving us free weed. So it was really nice of them, because we were like these 4, you know, broke kids from Australia traveling in a van behind their bus. And they're like, "Oh, guys, we feel sorry for you. Come to the bus. It's okay." But yeah, they were just really nice guys. And yeah, definitely won't ever forget that experience. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. I mean, good music is timeless, right? Whether and I think one of the key things that you mentioned in that I took away from that was that you can be a master of your craft, and when you know what you're using, you can maximize that to still make stuff that's relevant today. What's a song that or do you have a song that you go to whenever you're stuck and trying to find inspiration? What's your like go-to song to just get you hyped and back into the vibe for songwriting?
I'm just trying to think, because I was, you know, writing yesterday, so I'm trying to think, because it changes. Yeah. But there's actually this kind of, you know, I wish I could label some sort of unknown band or whatever, but there's like, there's these Radiohead B-sides from the 90s, which are just blowing my mind right now. Because it's kind of like I went on iTunes and just went, I'll get some like old Radiohead, because I haven't seen like these 12 tracks from the Ben's B-sides and OK Computer B-sides, and I bought them, and then they're just, it's like they were better than the rest of the albums. It's kind of like, why didn't they release this stuff? It's freaking awesome. Like, it's got, and it's all basic and strict, because I think I'm guessing it's because it didn't reach the kind of production side of things, that it's just all stripped back guitars, and it's kind of like they didn't, because there's obviously a lot of perfectionists in that band, and it's kind of like they didn't get to the point where they just actually started layering the crap out of it with effects. So there's always like raw guitar layers. It's like Johnny Green, like he just plugged in his Strat and did like 3 layers of guitars and just left. It's like, that's awesome. Like that's way better. Like for me, like because it's like, well, that sounds like Pavement. That sounds like, you know, which was an influence on that band. And yeah, so it changes. There's that Autolux band I mentioned at the moment. Funnily enough, I'll jump into Arcade Fire now and again just for some lyrics, and I didn't realize until I actually really listened to some lyrics. It's kind of this anti-religious Christian bent in some of their stuff. I was like, I didn't even notice that before. And so yeah, it changes. I don't have a general one pump up go-to song. I just is always, you know, and like the classics like Built to Spill or Pavement. The Built to Spill song called Going Against My Mind, which I really, really like. So that, you know, yeah. Cool. Sorry for the blurred answer of shit.
No, that was fun. I think I resonate with you on that level. Was when I get stuck or whatever, and my go-to song kind of changes over time, and it's just, I suppose, a vibe of that inspires me right now. Whereas I might go back to something that inspired me 5 years ago, but it doesn't resonate with me now in the same way it did 5 years ago. So that's cool. Do you get writer's block?
Yeah.
How do you deal with it?
I just stopped writing, to be honest. It goes with the territory. It's a horrible feeling, but it's not. I kind of feel like people label it like it's some sort of disease. Like it's like, oh my god, you got writer's block. What are you gonna do about that, dude? Go see a doctor. Like it's just kind of like, it's like, no, it's to me. I just think, it's just not getting any fresh ideas at the moment. So I just stopped writing, and even to the point, if I even find it better, it sounds weird, just stop listening to music as well. Just for like, because I think it happens when you just like stop getting excited. And it's like, it's just that same old guitar tone. It just sounds boring. It just sounds like a mess. And then you start you start really doubting yourself, and you think, oh, I can't do this anymore. I just writing the same old crap. It's all boring. And then, you just got to stop for at least a week, and then just really unwind. And then you'll pick up. And funny enough, that's the time where I've written some really good songs, is like if I have just stopped for a week or two and literally just one morning picked up a guitar and started playing. And then because it just sounds so exciting again, you come up with some cool stuff. So, yeah.
What do you do with the songs that you give up on?
Just throw them to the never. They're gone.
Okay.
I'm pretty bad like that. I remember hearing, apparently, what's his name? From Children Collide. I remember because when I was writing Hungry Ghost, my process is pretty bad in terms of I don't come up with 50 songs and demo them and then drop them on. We get the band in the room like, all right, we're gonna play through 50 fucking songs. Let's do this. Like I literally just go, hey guys, last 3 months I've got 3 songs. And then like, are you serious? Like that's, and it's like, well, I have a really low allowance for ideas that, one day sounds good, and if I wake up the next day and it doesn't sound good, and then the next day it's like still not sounding good, I'm like, forget it. It's just not. It's if it's not memorable, and if it's not something that excites you after a few days, and if it's still not even resonating, like I'm working on songs now where I've even thrown out a few, and it's just like, well, like I remember even one, I did some like basic guitars on the computer, and then I went back and I literally forgot the vocal melody, and I was like, oh, it's crap then, because I think there's an old Beatles saying, it's like the ones you remember are the keepers, and I don't know, I think there's some truth to that. It's like like even those little niggly ideas that you think are small, and then even like I still disregard them, like I'll get to that idea later. It's like they still keep, popping up. It's like, well, there's something there, and then it turned into a song. It ends up being a great song. So,
have you ever found that, on a song have you ever returned to a song that you've given up on and found that it was a gem, and been like, hang on, maybe I didn't see that originally, and you're like 3 days later, you're just about to completely chuck it out, and you're like,
I'll use Covered in Chrome as an example. We'll never go throw it out. But it was funny because I remember when releasing the record, I think it was just old, because there was like 3 years of just kind of writing for that record. And I think with by the time it's Covered in Chrome, recorded it, I think what had happened was I basically demoed it, and then we kind of all agreed this structure worked. It was just cool, snappy pop song. But I remember referring it to as, oh, that's just the pop song. Well, that's just some crummy pop song. And then like I wasn't that excited about the song at all when the record came out. I remember just thinking, it's a good song. It's good. And then I remember Tidswell was really excited about it. And Bryce, who we recorded with, he really liked it from the get-go. He thought it was a great song. But even I mean, even Johan from IU was a bit. He's like, yeah, I think it's good, but you know, and then it just kind of took off. And then like even it's weird because the whole hell fuck yeah thing. I never thought of that as any hook or anything anyone would like yell out, or it was just something I sang during vocals, and there was no thought given to it, and it was just this cool kind of way to like drop in the chorus, this way to like hold some tension back and then just drop it, and then yeah. So it's funny that to me was really surprising when it just like really kind of became popular. I guess that's a song where it was. I think it's ever going to get thrown out. But I did think, it's just kind of like another track on the record. I didn't think it was going to be special.
Sure. As you mentioned, hell, fuck yeah. I know when you guys put it out in the US that you had to like censor or record a censored version. Yeah. How difficult was that? And I suppose how did you approach that from a songwriting perspective, knowing how much that resonated with audiences here?
I guess to me, I was always doubtful about working in America because to me there's something Australian about the sound of the song, the lyrics. I was like, I don't know if Americans are going to get this because it is like just clotheslines in the sun, it's always annoying for someone to say strip out vocals. Because you're just like, why? The part I didn't get was you hear hip hop like every day, and surely my lyrics aren't as intense as Nicki Minaj. Yeah. And I don't understand, does she get stripped? Like, what happens with her songs? Like, it must just be a continual bleep fest for hip hop in America. But I didn't. Apparently not. So I don't know, but it was the thing was with our band, we could see it coming anyway because we toured 18 months in America. We played Lollapalooza. We've done, we did over 200 shows in America in a year. And if there's anything we kind of did have an understanding of, it was commercial radio in America. It's a whole different ball game. It's a whole different beast. There's, it's a really, really big industry over there. And I just wasn't surprised at all. I remember doing an interview with like News Limited and they're going, are you shocked? Are you? I was like, no, because it's America, man. Like that's like they don't have a national equivalent of like a Triple J where it's this government funded, no ad free, swearing at the arts. They just don't have a national version of that I know of anyway. So everything's ad funded. They're pretty conservative in the middle of America where it is just rock music. Like that's where it's still pretty strong, 5-finger death punch and whatnot. And so I just wasn't surprised. I was like, well, the stations that are going to play this are Midwest rock stations, some in California, and they're all commercial and they all have these crazy rules with anyone who pays for the ads there. Don't like swearing. So yeah. I just wasn't surprised, that's all.
You guys wrote a record while you were over there, right? Did you guys work on music while you were over there? And did that kind of, the reason why I ask is you talk about the music industry and how it's different over there compared to here and kind of how it operates as a machine. Did that kind of influence the music that you guys were creating while you were over there?
It was, I actually, like the answer is kind of no. Like I actually think America was kind of a risky and damaging thing for our band because, when we there's the other analogy I can think of, and it's one James and I are talking about, is there's this like skate film called All This Mayhem. It's about the Tappers brothers who went to skate in America. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that film, but they talk about how skating in like I don't know how to pronounce it, it's like Pran skate park, whatever. It was like this local cool thing, it was about skating, and that was it. It's just skate. And then they went to America, and then there's Tony Hawk and all this stuff was going on, and it was this whole commercial, this machine, and they couldn't understand it. And I think we first got there, signed to Thurston Moore, toured to Dinosaur Jr., Build to Spill. It was awesome. And we're like, this is so sick. We fit right in here. But then when the record was released and we actually had to like work, it wasn't just go tour with some of your favorite bands. You had to work. It was like rocking up at radio stations with 2 acoustic guitars at 2 p.m, playing the town that night, driving to the next town, and it was 5 or 6 days a week, and it was just work, and it was. I mean, as a got to see a lot of America, it was really great, but there was something a bit, just demoralizing about it, because it's like, wow, there is this huge music machine in this country, whereas I feel like Australia has a bit more of a no rules approach. You know, we've got Unearthed, we've got all these like ways. I mean, stuff like this where it's like, I don't know, it just feels like you got these bands that start out in garages and they actually do go somewhere. And yeah, in America, it's just like, yeah, it was an intense thing, and we got through it, and we came back, and we did, you know, we learnt a lot, and I think it was at that point, it's like where we really actually learned like what type of band we were, and it was either should we just break up and do normal shit, and maybe we could like jam on weekends or something, and then I think I don't know. It took like a year, but we kind of came to terms with we'll fucking work jobs, and we'll practice some nights, and we'll release a record, and find people that want to do it our way. So go to a label and say, we got jobs, and this is how much time we're going to do. This is how much time we're going to dedicate, but we still think we can do a kick-ass record, and we still think Australia needs this record. Yeah. And then, you know, we surrounded ourselves with those people, and I think it was just the kind of experience where you just kind of, you just kind of really get enough guts and balls to say, you can piss off. It's our way now, and that's it. So, sorry, I've blubbered on again. The original question. So yeah, the American. Sorry, to go back to your question, I didn't do any writing in America. We were in Motel 6 hotel rooms nightly, and you know, we're getting there at 1 a.m, and I didn't really feel like pulling out a guitar and writing. It was kind of like, it was just work. It was like, let's just get through it. Let's just do something, like just keep touring and just get through it. And it just didn't stop. So it's like you never had time to sit and reflect and write. Sure. And even when we did go back to Brooklyn, you know, we were sharing one apartment with like bed bugs. And even it's like in winter, you don't feel like writing over there. So yeah, the writing started when we got back home. Yeah.
Cool. And how did you balance that work life and the music life, and getting time to kind of develop new material and rehearse and all that kind of stuff?
I think like one of the things that came out of America, I mean, we've always kind of been this band anyway. I think even during America and before America is like we really put, we're really lucky in this regards. We just really put band first. It's, you know, if your dad's sick or if you, it's like, don't worry, either we'll get on and do it without, or we'll just cancel. That's just how it is. And I think it's really paid off, because in those years, if there was a few of us, like I could just imagine if there was one or two of us who's like, we're really still gung-ho and just like, no, we're practicing 6 nights a week or you can get out, there wouldn't have been Avant Soho. It just wouldn't have worked. So there's this kind of like winding down and this weird bond where it was like, no, we're still a band. Might not see you for 4 weeks, but we're still a band. And that, I think it was just balancing. We didn't work on stuff until we had songs, until we actually got into a room and had 3 or 4 songs where we were actually excited again. That's when we started working again, because the worst thing is touring. If you're touring or working in music and you don't have all the 100% faith in those songs, you're going to have a really hard few years ahead of you. You're just not going to pull through. And I think, you know, it's just, that's how we've run it. We're different, you know, we're personalities. We're schoolmates. We're lucky in that regard. Other bands do it differently. I don't know. But yeah, it works for us.
Say you are not Luke anymore and you're a fly on the wall in the studio as Violent Soho are working on music. What's that look like, and what's the process like? Like, say, you know, you bring in the song and you know, for an outsider, how would you explain that process and how it then develops and stuff when the band's there?
It's kind of like it's a process that takes hours. You know, like I think the first few weeks are intense because you got your drums and bass, and that's what we lay them down first. And Mikey will just jump into his. I hope he's not watching his Lars mode. Well, I call it his Lars mode. Like, have you ever seen these videos of Metallica and they're like making records, and Lars is like jumping around the room and he's like drawing diagrams? I don't know of what. Like, maybe I don't. He's drawing stuff, and I don't know. Mikey, he gets excited and he jumps up and he starts like really focusing on drums. That's fun to watch. And Henry decides to bring in four bass heads and cabinets and DI. How much actually made it on the record, I don't even know. I don't. That's just Henry. He loves his gear. And then and then when we get to guitars, got Tizzle comes in. He does some rhythm guitars, and then maybe I'll jump in and do some lead and rhythm as well. And then Tizzle will come back in. But I mean, like the guitars for a track like OK Cathedral took, I think it was like 4 days all up. And it was just this process where it's like, try something. Oh, that worked. Try something. Different pedal arrangements, different. So yeah, I mean, the whole point of that record was to do it cheaply. So we had 4 days to work on one song. And then, yeah. And I mean, I even remember at the end of the record, Johan and going, oh yeah, like, so we're meant to finish tomorrow. And he's like, yes. And so, yeah, it's not going to happen. So I need more money. I need more time, but it's sounding good, trust me. And he's like, oh, all right. So I squeezed another 3 days, and that was just to finish off Hungry Ghost, that acoustic track, because it was this kind of relentless perfection that Bryce and I were after, and I think it's funny because I really think that I got this weird drive where I really want to impress the other guys. It's about I live for the moment where I get like James might have been left the studio for a day and then they walk in and I'm just like, listen to this. It's like, whoa. So that's, maybe that's the weird dynamic that works. it's this kind of, I really want to impress those guys. I think they know way more about music than I do, in all honesty. They listen to way more bands. And I just think it's just a lot of work. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the next record, but it's going to be like an 8-week, very daunting 13-hour days process. So yeah.
How do you go about picking the studio you want to work in for the record, a record?
It used to be, it used to be like a bit more. It was weird because now with the last record, it was, like I said, it was about good timing, and I think it was like the antithesis of how we'd done it before, because when we signed with the Samoa's label and Universal send you this email and they're like, who do you want to record with? 1, Butch Vig. 2, Gil Norton. 3 like Albini, like, and they hadn't hooked them up or anything, and we actually wrote back like, haha, no, can you let us know the serious ones? And they're like, oh no, that is the list. We just went, holy, any of them? Like, what do you mean? Like, any of them? That'd be fucking incredible. And then, it ended up being Gil, funnily enough. But so obviously, there's that way of deciding, which is I'll work with any of my heroes. Yeah. But then there's, when it came to Hungry Ghost, like I said, I feel like the band reached a different place, and we're just like, we don't want to go. I mean, it was funny because I remember this conversation, we were even kind of anti going to Melbourne because I was like, I don't want to go to Melbourne in winter. I'm from Brisbane. So we kind of just call up Bryce. Like, we used to do demos with him and they were always the seed of the records. Like, even when we were recording with Gil Norton, even Gil, freaking produced Foo Fighters and the Pixies, would bring up the demo and go, how did he get that sound? And it's like, well, and then I'd have to, go, I think he did this. So I was like, well, why don't we just go with where we're really comfortable? I work really well with Bryce. And, we can go home at night. Like, why would the band spend money on a comm in Melbourne? We just weren't interested in this whole kind of, let's go off and record in the forest. It's like, fuck it, let's just stay home and like have heaps of time, go for a cheap studio. It ended up being a great studio with like heaps of great gear. And yeah, I shouldn't use the word cheap. It was because it's actually I think it's one of the best studios in Brisbane now. The more I think about it, and like they got more gear, and so I think it's kind of like this the mature decision now is like how we came to it. But it was those original demos. We always, when we listen back to the demos, we were like, man, that guy gets a good sound. So that's how we decided last record. Possibly the next record as well. Like it's kind of why we got such a good rapport with Bryce and his very organic style working. He's like, because his idol is Steve Albini, and you hear these stories of Steve Albini, but he's like a better version. Because I've chatted with bands that have worked with Albini, and sometimes apparently they go in and then he just says, okay, have fun. I'll hit record. You can work out everything else. So it's Bryce is like that, but he'll tell you if you're singing out of tune.
Sure.
And he'll and he's really creative. You say, I want to sound like this record, but mix with that record, but mix with that. I mean, one time I threw at him, I said, I want it to sound like, that weird organ sound from Radiohead, but mixed with that cool, dreamy phases stuff from Dive. But can you throw in like an electronic sample bit, like from like Portishead, The Rip? And he just went, okay, I'll try. And came up with, so yeah, he's that type of guy. He'll just go, okay, and then we'll work on it for a few hours and then get something that's good.
Yeah, that's really cool. And as you were kind of talking about that, I was just reflecting on the producer who worked on my first record as well, and kind of having the exact same conversations of like, man, we wanted to sound like this, we wanted to sound like that, and he's just like, okay, like that's their job, right? To just be like, okay, let's just try it, let's just play with it and see what comes from it. That's really cool. How much of like when you're in the studio, do you kind of have moments where the band kind of will just jam on, a particular vibe or whatever, and how much of those kind of moments have translated into like really gold moments and resulted in moments in songs?
It's definitely, I reckon I'd point more to like we do this kind of pre-production thing where because you don't want to go into a studio with like that loose of a plan. Sure. Sometimes you can, like if it's just like the Hungry Ghost track where it's a basic acoustic, like I only had a verse and chorus worked out, and then we just did the rest in the studio. But when it's a full band track, it's like OK Cathedral, it's just so I mean in pre-production we kind of just sit there as a band, and Bryce is there as well, and we just record live takes of everything. Yep. And then sometimes there'll be like a bit of gold in them where it's just like a random, I think it's like Fur Eyes is one song where we actually use snippets of a demo, and I think it was James mishit a note or something and ended up bending up this blues note. Like it's just weird, and it's sick. It sounded awesome. Yeah. So there's like moments when there's like gold comes out like that, but it's not, I think it works great for other bands, and maybe on this record we'll even try doing more of that, just jamming out. But it's a bit of like what have done before is I'll get in a room with just Mikey and Henry, or either of them, and play through songs quickly, and then once I hear the drum beat that Mikey just came up with out of nowhere, it really helps mold the rest of the song. And I'll say, okay, stop, I'll go home, work on it, and then we'll come back with the rest, so it's hit and miss. Sometimes you can get really good songs from jamming out, but yeah.
Yeah, cool. I've got to ask, and we were talking about it before, you got a track on The Sims 3, and you had to re-record the song, like the vocals in the song in the Sims language, because they don't have, like, it's gibberish. What was that like, having to record that in gibberish?
They said, we're in New York at the time, and they have, underneath the Universal offices, they have like this studio, and there's a guy there, and he actually makes all the stuff for Guitar. He said he made all the stuff for Guitar Hero. He's American, so they all like, I do all this. Oh, yeah, cool, man. And he had this whole studio, but and then they actually sent me, I thought it was a bit of a joke, and I actually thought I was going to be able to go in and kind of make it up, like maybe besides cross, like make up some Simlish, but they actually sent me these, they got someone from EA or whatever it is to like write it out in Simlish.
Is it like a Simlish vocab, like dictionary?
There
is.
Yeah, So it was a full
That's hilarious.
vocabulary. And they made me redo the whole song. I was like, are you serious? And I had to do the whole song in, so it was Jeebus Dobie Goofneeb.
Yeah.
Was the lyric. And
That's
I had to,
hilarious.
it was weird, I had to like yell it, like, Jeebus Dobie Goofneeb. Like, and he was going, more aggression. I was like, are you serious? So, yeah, it was pretty fun.
That is cool. How long was that studio session?
Like,
Like
30 minutes.
Okay, all right. I thought it was gonna be like,
Yeah.
man, we spent 3 hours because I just couldn't keep a straight face.
No, it was a quick one because he like we did that and then he just went through and said, he's like, oh, I do stuff guitar hero. I was like, guitar hero, and then he just took me through all that process and yeah.
That's cool. We'll take this opportunity now to open it up from people here or from Twitter. Does anyone here kind of have any questions they want to ask Luke? Yep.
I was just wondering the structure of Covered in Chrome, like with Covered in Chrome being like one of the tracks that got really booted. Like when you were writing it, did you think about the dynamic structure much? How it's like real soft and then the chorus is like so aggressive, which kind of gets everyone pumping. Like, was that in your mind at the time when you were writing it and jamming it, or did that come out more like in the studio later with the producer and stuff?
No, I really go to town on structure. Like important because I think, you know, trying to think of a better word, you know, think of it like a start journey. Like I just think it's really, really important to nail structure. So yeah, like the structure was completely nailed before. I do remember Johan going, it's so fun. This is so much fun. I can just blame Johan for heaps of shit. But Johan, I remember Johan going, it's a good song, you should add a third chorus. And I gave him like this huge response in an email as to why there should not be a third chorus. Because I was like, you don't, you know, I think there's a lack of some songs I hear on radio where I'm just like they're just too long. I don't get it. Especially like rock music, it's like competing with all this electronic stuff. It's like why it should just, yeah, I don't. I remember a story Gil Norton told me when he first started recording the Pixies, and he went out with Charles or like whatever you want to call him, and they were record shopping, and Gil Norton kept telling him, "You got to make these Pixies songs longer. You got to, you know, like I think maybe Tame or Debase, like one of these key tracks," and then apparently like Charles puts out this record and just goes, "Well, they didn't fucking do it. It's like the Beatles." And he's like, you know, the first pop songs are like 2 minutes, you know. So I did think like with the structure of that song and like the introduction to the song, it was a separate song. I'm like, oh, that could be something really soft and acoustic. And then it just, when I kind of just figured out it was the same key, I was like, holy shit, like that's awesome, like that's fun. You know, it's cool to start it out soft and then just like bring it in with some drums. So it just felt good, it just seemed to work. And then yeah, it was, but yeah, I remember I did try like a third chorus and all this other stuff, but it just felt right. Like it really hit the pocket with that structure. So
Yep.
You know, you're saying about structure, and do you think about when you're doing it? Do you think about like relatability, like how people like? Do you think, oh, I should get to the chorus now so people can get into this, or do you think this sounds sick? Just like
I think it's I know what you mean. Like it's just kind of like sometimes you got there's this. I love hearing stories about these. They like it's like they're almost conspiracy theories. Like there's that Nickelback story about how the guy times out every song. Like he'll listen to a Britney Spears song and he goes and writes a Nickelback song just like a Britney Spears song, but it's secretly decoded in rock. Like it's like I don't know, but apparently I think people have proven it. But anyway, but no, I don't think about it like that. Like I think it's more what you said. Like you just kind of go, oh, that works. It sounds good, but it's a certain sensibility which I know I've had to like. I know I kind of built up over the years where it's kind of like, and I just always think the key word I have in my head is boring. It's like if it's a minute, it's like boring, and so it's not. Those times, you know, the Nickelback structure, it kind of I hate to. I'd never sit down and write a song like that, but I can see why like when you actually like if you actually analyze it, you can kind of see why it works. I think it's just because naturally, you know, there's a certain period where if you hear the same repeated riff and lyric or melody over, it gets boring. So it needs to change. It's like a jolt. There needs to be a difference. And I always like, it's amazing how much it works. It's like you're seeing, I'm demoing a song and I'm like, oh, it's not taking me anywhere. It needs to be different and probably there. And if you just change the chord up a bit, if you just change a vocal melody, add something new like a bass line that wasn't there before. And even so I've done stuff like I've actually had a bass line and then just take it out of the whole front of the song. And then so when that kicks in, it's like, oh, there's something different now. And if you actually look at songs that are like Arcade Fire Reflector, it's like a 7.5 minute song. But it's like every part of that song is completely necessary. And it's because it keeps building and changing. And that's what's important. I'm amazing when I hear these 5-minute songs, you know, from wherever. It's just, even the last chorus is exactly the same as all the other choruses. And it's like, why did you do that? It's, you know, I just think human sensibility is built on jolts and changes. And it's always little tiny timing and differences in a song that will make it something great and different. It's like, it's weird. It's like thinking of like negative space in a painting. It's like you might be looking at a black square, but it's actually the space around it, which makes it good. My microscope. So, yeah, it's weird, like thinking of it like that. But yeah, it's. I look at it covered in chrome. It's kind of like I said before, that hell fuck yeah part. I thought nothing of it, but if you think about it, it's like, well, actually, the verse kind of reaches its climactic point where it can't go anywhere else, and then just breaks, and then it's a jolt. There's something. And then it just drops into the chorus. It's just completely different again. And it's all those moments in songs which actually is what can make or break a song. And then like once, yeah, if you actually go through and listen to heaps of music, it's like all these little things I never realize, don't notice before, see before, that kind of, yeah, work.
Yep.
That's it's a tough one because if I ask anyone out of in the band, I'm the most precious little shit sometimes with like, oh, I don't want to tour, I want to be at home with my wife or girlfriend or whatever. It's just that's just me. And it's weird because like I thought when we went to America, I was like, oh, this is it, I'll give it this one shot, and if it fails, I have to quit. I'll make myself quit. And I came back and I kind of just couldn't. It was this. So for me, it's weird because I've always been a safe guy going, nah, I'll work a day job. I'm completely content with that and that life. But it's like music just keeps on dragging me back. And it's this really odd thing I still like, even like still grapple with. It's just kind of, it's just, whereas, like, I don't know, maybe it's like Tiswell or Mikey, or like they're just kind of like they're freaking all in, it's something that I think, you know, definitely if it's something you're passionate about, obviously you should drop everything and pursue it. And I think there's ways to do it where you're not you're not living on the, you know, but yeah, I do think, though, it's extremely tough, and I'm sure everyone here has probably heard it before. It's so tough because it's not like any other career where it's like, oh, I'm going to make computer games. It's cool. Go off and make games, and there's all these other dudes that do it, and you get this nicely paid wage, and you can buy a house and live your life and have a really good career. It's like music. You can't just wake up and go, oh, you know what? I'm going to write songs and then join another 100,000 songwriters, get a wage. It's just not like that. It's extremely competitive. It's extremely, it's tough. And yeah, even with success, it's like still tough. Because yeah, like I said, it's unpredictable. And I don't think there's anything else that's as rewarding in the world to me anyway, and to other people maybe. So I still think it's worth pursuing, but it's a tough one because it's it can be so full of bullshit sometimes. So I mean, and this is coming from, you know, like sleeping five, six people sleeping in a hotel room in America, in the middle of Albuquerque, New Mexico or something, and like still playing to 2 people a night, and then doing that for a year and a half, and then coming back home, and then still having to kick in for another 3 years. So if there's any advice I would give, rather than being all doom and gloom, is that you just got to have good songs, because the one thing that's kept our band together and many other bands and kept them going is like this really strong sense of what they're trying to do. They're not just kind of randomly jamming and going, yeah, we kind of sound like the bands we like. It's like, no, they're actually trying to create something new, actually really, really believe in what they're making. And it's kind of weird. It's like this weird sense in our band. We actually never gave a shit what anyone else thought. It's kind of like, oh, no, this is who we are, too bad. And I think it's really important to stick with that because, yeah, we played locally in Brisbane for like 4 or 5 years before we did anything really serious. And that's just what we did. But we always had this real sense that it was very serious. We never even looked at it like a hobby, even though in reality, somewhat the time we were spending on it was like hobby-like, but we took it very seriously. So yeah, it's just you got to have good songs. You really got to understand what you're doing in terms of like what you're trying to get out there and what you're trying to release and what you're trying to. And I think the rest just flows on. Like all the industry stuff is a byproduct of having a good band and good songs. It's how it is. It's like those AR dudes and labels can't do shit with you unless you have something in the first place that other people believe in and they see it, you know. So yeah, that's the only bit of advice I can possibly give with industry stuff or like. But yeah, it's tough one, man, especially when it comes to girlfriends. It's just like, yeah, you know, yeah, be my girlfriend and I won't be here for 3 weeks. So, you know, good luck and hope you can. Sorry, I always find that question really tough to answer because it's like, oh, I don't know what to say. You know, it's up to you. That's all. That's the reality of it. And there'll always be people who want to make music and there'll always be people who try just as hard as you. But at the end of the day, it depends on, you know, the song there and, you know, how good they are and how good the band is and all these factors. Splash a bit of luck in there and then hopefully you can get something out of it, right? Yeah. But yeah.
Cool. We'll probably go one more question if there's any more questions. Yeah.
Do you think a lot about like vocal melodies and stuff like that, and also like you know you'll sing this part and then this part you'll more yell kind of thing? Do you think a lot about that? Or?
When it comes to like I think when you're on your vocals, like it's kind of weird. Like some of it's just kind of pre-planned. Like I just know when I've written a song, I know where the vocals kind of scoop in. It's because like it's really funny because when I have a vocal melody for a demo, it just sounds like Simlish. It's just like it's just this weird, and then maybe I love it when I'm lucky enough for some awesome line to pop in my head without me having to think about it. That's the best, but it doesn't happen much. And then so yeah, like when I'm doing, but most of the like good stuff in terms of trying stuff out, like I actually do try a lot of different vocal stuff in the studio. That's when it's like vocals actually take a while for me, one because I burn my voice out in like a day pretty easily, so we spread them out a bit, and then on top of that you try a lot of harmonies, a lot of yelling, or then inversing it, you know, rather than yelling there, try singing it a bit more clearer and softer and see if that works, see if that fits with the guitars on top and stuff. Yeah.
Cool. I think there's one more question at the back. We'll see if we can get to that. Yeah.
It's about Brisbane, our hometown. Do you think, like, do you remember, like, back in the days where, you know, Roxy turning the arena and Rick's what it used to be when we were young? And do you think it'll ever come back? You know, like our JC opened Trifford and places are coming back, but, like, it was such a good scene, you know, 20 years ago now.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah, it was. The Brisbane scene's a bit interesting, right? Because I don't know. Like, I agree with you. Like, when there's days where there's this place for guys that aren't from Brisbane, there's this little bar called Rick's, and I actually remember going to Rick's straight out of uni and watching bands there and going, "Oh my god, one day we will play Rick's." Like, and that would be, I've made it. I'm happy. Like, and going back to the question about dropping stuff for music, it's kind of like that was our mentality. Like we took it that seriously, but our only goal was actually to play Rick's. And so yeah, like Rick's has since been brought out by a lot of like the Valley in general, and having lived there for a few years, yeah, it's been brought out by larger bars and companies, and the venues change. But you know, Brisbane's pretty resilient. Queensland in general is pretty resilient. I just know there's gonna be other venues that pop up. Crowbar's been like a blessing, like in terms of that just getting some really good international acts in. It's all Deaf Heaven and it's just some really in Earth and these bands that probably wouldn't have had any other options to go to or tour with, and actually have a venue manager that understands music and how bands tour, and like bar, and then yeah, like you said, JC from Powderfinger just opened up a new one. So Brisbane's a tough one. Like I think the Hi-Fi just closed as well. so yeah, the Hi-Fi's shut. So the thing I've learned being 10 years around Brisbane is like things close and things open, and you know, hopefully I don't know if we'll ever get the Valley back to exactly where it was in the glory days, because it's just so many apartments there now. It's like this whole area's just kind of changed its face, and it's a bit weird. It's just not what it was. And I'm sure it's funny though you say that, because if I have conversations with like dudes from like the really old Brisbane, like I'm talking the Saints or Go-Betweens days, they they think the Valley that we were in is a piece of shit, and that they were in the real Valley when it was like just full of prostitutes and strip bars, like the real Valley. And then so it's funny, I guess it's generational, right? Your opinion on when the Valley was good changes. But I know my days when I was at uni, that's when it was just awesome. The Troubadour and Rick's just had some really good bands playing. You could go see like a band like 6 Foot Hick or The Hits or Dick and Nasty play some really good shows in small venues. And yeah, there's just always a sense there people really don't give a shit about have fun and just, yeah, play some music to not think about the heat.
Cool, man. Thank you for your time and for sharing your insights. And thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you to the Arts Centre Melbourne, APRA, and Unify for having us here for Songwriter Speaks. We hope you found it valuable and that there were some things and gems there that you can take away and apply to your craft as well. But yeah, thank you.
All right. Thanks for coming, guys.